we're very honored to have with us today here in the studio George Hamilton, and you probably won't recognize him coming right out. You don't have your hat on yet, George.
Can I put it on?
Please, please.
All right, here
please.
I go.
Thanks for being with us.
Yeah, well, it's good to be here, man, Anderson. Thank you very much.
Always good to see you. And
All
for
right.
many of you would not know this, but we've got another guest. George is going to introduce Will here in a few moments. But George lives in our county and comes from a very, very high-profile dad. They had to live up to some pretty high standards there.
Well, you know, he lived in Williamson County from, I guess, about 1986 to 2014. George Hamilton IV, the International Ambassador of Country Music, Grand Ole Opry legend.
Well, I will surely miss you, and how I wish you would not go. There are some things that we can't change, and some answers we may never know. But we will meet again somewhere on the other side. We'll walk hand in hand. It's looking like it's over now, but it surely ain't the end. No, it ain't, 'cause we will meet again.
Mighty proud of him. He taught me a lot of stuff, and I tried to remember some of it. One of them was cut your hair, but somehow I forgot. But I'm mighty proud of George IV. He took country music and Tennessee music all around the world and really pretty much inspired this thing we do called the Viva NashVegas radio show. And there's a picture of George IV here back about, that might have been 2012 or 2013 when we were back at historic Handy Hardware, the birthplace of the Viva NashVegas.
On Columbia Avenue.
Yeah, beautiful downtown Franklin. And there is Will, who is known as William Covington, our Director of Hospitality on the Viva NashVegas radio show, sitting right beside me and right at the hospitality desk. How you doing?
Doing good.
All right.
So let's talk a little bit about, before we actually talk about what you're doing now, I know you've got some other acclimates here. You've got an activity we're doing now down at the archives.
Yeah, Williamson County Archives and Museum.
And when is that meeting now? When do they
Well,
meet?
we do it, normally we did the Viva NashVegas radio show at Kimbrough's every other week. And so now we do it at the Williamson County Archives every other week. So it becomes a little bit complicated for people to understand. The best thing to do is check our Facebook page, facebook.com/Viva NashVegas radio show for the exact time and place of the show.
And what can we expect if we go to that? Well, you want to tell us what can we expect? What kind of entertainment we're going to have? That's your job.
Well, you can expect Americana music at its greatest. We have people coming over from all around the United States. We get people from overseas from time to time. We have cloggers that come in. And we've got a lady from London, England, Miss Barbara A. Stone, who plays some of the greatest classical music you can ever want to listen to.
Yeah.
Let's talk about, you mentioned something that a lot of the folks watching this show may not know the terminology Americana music.
Yeah. Well, Americana music. I was looking for my map. I left it at the archives. So you got to go down and visit the Williamson County Country Music Wall of Fame at the Williamson County Archives and Museum.
At 5 Points.
That's at 5 Points, across from some places, right there on the corner.
Right across from the post office.
Yeah. And the Americana Music Triangle is something that has been a very happening thing. You can go visit them on Facebook also, and they have a website. And the Americana Music Triangle is an area with sort of New Orleans and Memphis and Nashville as the sort of edges, I believe, of the triangle. And the whole idea that all these forms of music that came to America all mixed together in this area called the Americana Music Triangle, coming up from the South. And you got the jazz and maybe
blues, country and western, the true.
Yeah.
It's basically American root music.
That's exactly right.
You know, jazz got a little bit of influence from it. So does this rock and roll we got here, rockabilly, You know, all that came from the basic roots of the blues or the American gospel music. And from those roots, it all kind of encompassed into what they considered Americana, just to find a group to put it in.
Now, we've also got some people who may even be near here who come from East Tennessee. And in East Tennessee, of course, there's quite a big contingency of Americana music with Appalachian music. You would have Jumpin' Bill Carlisle, Dolly Parton, Chet Atkins. I believe even Carl Smith came from over in East Tennessee. Who at the table may be from East Tennessee originally?
That'd be me.
All right. So
Yeah.
you know a lot about the history of Americana music in the mountains. And
Well, I was from an area outside of Knoxville, a little country place. It's no longer small anymore. It's like Franklin. It's called Farragut. But back in those days, there was a gentleman that had a grocery store chain called Cas Walker.
Yeah.
And Cas Walker had on his show a gentleman by the name of Porter Wagner.
Yeah.
I think we've heard of him in country music. And he introduced this new teenage girl by the name of Dolly Parton from Sevierville, Tennessee, on his show one morning. And from that time on, it was kind of like the Nashville side of that occurred here in Nashville for many, many years under drawing a blank.
The Nashville Sound?
Yes.
Well, you mean Chet Atkins.
Chet Atkins and
Owen Bradley.
Owen Bradley and some of those. And so out of that era of music, and you're right, it kind of all migrated down here to the Middle Tennessee side. But the Americana music you can expect to hear on your show or in this particular area is really got some very deep roots, not only in the Mississippi area where we think of it in Arkansas, but in other parts of the area.
Oh, yeah, of course, the birthplace of country music. It's interesting. On the Grand Ole Opry, we had such a big happening, but of course in Bristol, Tennessee, right there you would have the Carter family and Jimmy Rogers meeting together. It's very interesting to me, too, that two neighbors from East Tennessee are now two neighbors in Williamson County. Who would those be?
That'd be pretty close, wouldn't it? You and I?
Well, you and I, but also you and Dolly Parton. Dolly Parton.
Well, now Dolly Parton probably wouldn't know me. Let's get that straight. Let's talk a little bit about your dad. What influenced his? I never had thought of it before. His style of music, was it his parents or was it just a way of life that he grew up with?
Well, it's very neat because from the Americana Music Triangle, prior to being known as Americana Music Triangle, back in the, I guess, late 40s, my father used to listen to the Grand Ole Opry on the radio in Winston-Salem, North Carolina, where he was from. His grandfather was a railroad man, and they used to sit by the radio in Winston-Salem, and my great-great-grandfather would tell my father stories about the railroad, and he loved to hear songs by Jimmy Rogers and Singing Brakeman, and of course Roy Acuff, Wabash Cannonball. So he turned my father on to the Grand Ole Opry, and then my father's father became an executive vice president of Goody's Headache Powders over in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. And so they used to have a connection here in Nashville, and they would send my father on a bus over to Nashville with a name tag. He'd stay at the YMCA downtown to see all of his country music heroes. So, he was turned on by his grandfather and then sort of pushed or allowed to travel from my grandfather and my grandmother, she would actually take over my father's paper routes while he was out of town to come see the Grand Ole Opry.
So now you've carried on the tradition. Were you always influenced by the country western Americana type music?
I grew up backstage at the Ryman Auditorium, and that's how I came up with my NashVegas trademark. The whole idea that, you have Las Vegas, and there's a lot of glitz and glamour, but Nashville has its own rhinestones and neon, but it's got a country feel and kind of like a laid-back feel. NashVegas. And so I grew up backstage at the Grand Ole Opry watching Jimmy C. Newman, who had on sometimes a rhinestone alligator suit. He was the alligator man, and little Jimmy Dickens, and Roy Acuff. All these people, Ernest Tubb, they were big heroes of mine. One year, I went to the Wembley Festival over in London, England, which is a big festival, international festival of country music, that my father first went to, and then Bill Anderson was there with him, and they were inspired to bring back the idea for fanfare to the CMA from this Wembley International Festival of Country Music. On this plane flying over there was Marty Robbins, Ernest Tubb, Del Reeves, all kinds of my father. And it was just like amazing. So I grew up around these things, these people. Grew up around Minnie Pearl, and I did grow long hair. And there have been times that my music was louder. I was a big fan of Waylon Jennings and the Outlaw Movement, Willie Nelson. But I really love the traditional sounds, and I'm very happy at my mellow age now to play acoustic music and have a lot of banjos and auto harp, piano, dobro, fiddles, and stuff like that. We even have Tommy Jackson.
That's the tune.
Yeah. But and what we do is during the show, of course, it all starts off when William holds up the Viva NashVegas sign. Everybody screams out Viva NashVegas. And the whole idea is just to celebrate the true spirit of Nashville and really Franklin. And that's why in the Williamson County Archives and Museum, we have put up the Williamson County Country Music Wall of Fame, because so many of the big Opry stars, Minnie Pearl is buried here. Skeeter Davis is buried here. Many of the Opry stars actually lived in the Williamson County area. Of course, Eddie Arnold developed a good deal of Williamson County and Brentwood. And little Jimmy Dickens, George Jones. So much history has happened, and this would be a place where they would live their lives, and maybe the rhyme would be where their stage was. So we just love the wide open countryside of Williamson County and celebrating the fact that, wow, there's a whole lot of music history here, like the American. I'll let you hold that, and I'll go back to the Handy Hardware.
Please.
So here we are on the stage at the historic birthplace of the Viva NashVegas radio show, Handy Hardware. Andy Willoughby and, of course, Dr. Willoughby and Donna. So many people have helped us, and they gave us a chance to have our stage there, and we still have our souvenir stand there. They've still got fresh popcorn and all kinds of neat things at Handy Hardware, and you can stand on the square of carpet where so many of the legends have stood when they came to appear on the Viva NashVegas radio. The stage is still there. Who knows? Maybe that means there may be some special things happening there from time to time. But we've got lots of the props still there. You can see it's very exciting. Many people spend a couple days there just looking at the stage and shopping inside Handy Hardware. But we had a great time there. And then we just had too many people. So then we moved to where we could also have some food over to Kimbrough's. And then the chance came to head over to the Williamson County Archives and Museum. I went there several years back and thought this would be a really neat place to have the show. So when I talked to Amy, who's in charge down there, I said, now, I know this is a big question, but could we please do our show here? And she said, you mean it? And we said, yeah. So William came over and he signed the paperwork, Next thing you know, the rest is show business history. But I think down at the Williamson and Franklin Visitor Center downtown, they have a plaque that tells which location we'll be at on that weekend. And you can visit our Facebook.com/Viva NashVegas radio show site or VivaNashVegas.com, or if you can't be there, just turn on our Ustream channel to see what comes down the computer screen.
So I've always, as a son of a very, very well-known, important person in country music.
Well, I'll once again, back to the picture. I love
recently, I believe you got a plaque too, didn't you?
Oh, I know, yeah. Well, we have another, yes. This is George Hamilton IV, and the International Ambassador of Country Music. He got that name for taking country music. He had TV series in Canada and over on the BBC in England. Actually, out of Charlotte, North Carolina, he was partners with a man named Arthur Smith, who wrote Dueling Banjos and Guitar Boogie. The Arthur Smith TV show syndicated across America. But most importantly, he took country music behind the Iron Curtain, which was kind of an interesting thing. He was the first person to do that.
Into Russia.
Yeah, went to Russia, and he did a lecture concert series at Moscow University. And it was very interesting. He taught me, sometimes the people who are at the top, we had a lot of hard times,
Sure.
relations with different countries. But many times the students and the young people and people through music can communicate, because music is an international language.
Sure.
So with him being the International Ambassador of Country Music, I'd say he really just inspired me to look beyond. And that's why we've really, when we were talking about doing a radio show, we could have had an AM radio show, but why not go beyond on the internet? People can watch our radio show on our YouTube channel, NashVegas.tv. But I guess basically having good taste in music. He just loved great folk music, country music. And so I like to surround myself with people who love a variety, well, like yourself, a variety of good music. And you got roots in the music, you know, from the mountains and, of course, William Covington. And it's interesting. Music is not only international language, but it's national and local language. People are drawn to our state and to, you know, this region especially because of the music.
What's what time in the morning on Saturdays?
11 o'clock. You know what I wanted to remind you all of?
Please.
I forgot that I'm teaching letterpress over at O'More College, a great design school here in Franklin. This
what
is
is
one of my
letterpress?
posters, Think Globally, Act Hillbilly. I like to do that, woodblock printing. And this is another one here. I mean, we'll probably have to come back again for another interview. Franklin, Tennessee, good living since 1799. It's all wood block. And you come on by O'More College, and you can see how we do it.
So
You'll love it.
thanks for being with us today. We're going to have to go. George, thank you for being with us very much.
Thank you, Mayor. What a
And
wonderful
appreciate
time.
for all the influence you're having, your family's had, all in this general area. Well,
Make sure you visit the Williamson County Country Music Wall of Fame at the Williamson County Archives and Museum.
and Will Covington, special guest, special friend of George Hamilton. We thank you both for being here. We'll sign off with a clap and Viva Nash Vegas.
Viva Nash Vegas!
I'm Rogers Anderson.